and we can't recreate it. It's like they stepped into another dimension because they
Right.
described it as being colder when they stepped into it. They just got described it as being very dark, very quiet. Spent about 90 seconds in it, turned in and came out. And the interesting thing is when they went into it, they walked in unimpeded.
Mm-hmm.
When they came out the exact same route, there were branches and brambles that weren't there before. So it's like there were two realities existing at the same time. It's like on the quantum scale, the classic example is the dual slit experiment, where light is both a wave and a particle at the same time. Depends on when you observe it, right? But this is happening on a macro scale. And if you go back to our 2016 experience, Bob was a man and he was a ball of light, but he was both at the same time. And when they asked Bob, what was it like when you turned into a ball of light? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just walked over here. So once again, two realities existing at the same time, at the same place. So that's what happened to us. Now, the bad news is 4 people went into that cube.
Mm-hmm.
Only half of them are still alive.
Yeah.
So, there's the cold, hard reality of that. It's just kind of the way it is. So that was our second trip of really looking into it. But since then, we have had the phenomena evolves. That's the weird thing, is it's not just content just being there like boxes and cubes. We have gone and we've done some SD session out in the Meadow. And the transcript of that session is in my second book. And everybody that I've ever shown the video to, I say, okay, use your own judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that we were contacting and communicating with an intelligent entity? And almost to a person, after seeing that video, everybody raises their hand.
Makes a whole lot of sense to me. Now, the other thing, before I get away from it, is when you talk about Greg and his Estes method. And, I remember in the movie for, I believe it was LBL, right? Yeah.
It was like, first half was like Meadow, and then the second half was LBL. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Cryptic Expedition. Look at the poster right now in front of me. But anyways, like, I remember one of the questions asked to him, or not to him, but, the area, was, who's responsible for this? And, clear as day, he said Nephilim. And it's like, say what you will about, like, a ghost box, going through frequencies and all that, but the likelihood of that being broadcast out there on some radio station and causing some kind of interference is so infinitesimally small. Like, I don't even know how to calculate that.
Yeah.
Like, that is so telling. It's so telling. Everything is connected. I've been telling y'all this. It's just that much more confirmation, isn't it? Alrighty, guys, what's going on? I hope everybody is having a fantastic day, and everything has just been going your way. Kind of rhymes, doesn't it? Neat. Well, anyways, guys, I have an awesome show lined up for y'all tonight, and I'm really excited about it. I've been following this dude for a while. He's got some really interesting stuff, and I know you guys know who he is. And Portal Talk is just so much fun, isn't it? Like, when you start kind of opening your eyes to this stuff and you start hearing about those stories, you're just like, ooh, that's nice. That's nice. You want to hear more. You want to hear more. Like, ooh, this is This is a spicy burrito. I want to know more. At least that's how I feel about it. So, I mean, with that being said, like, shoot, who else could I get on besides Trey Hudson, right? So let's give this guy a listen to, shall we? So without any further ado, knowledge. So let's get up here, Mr. Trey Hudson.
Howdy, I'm sorry that the Wealth of Knowledge guy had to cancel, and I'm having to take his place. So you'll just have to settle for me, you know.
Well, second best. Oh well.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, runner-up prize is okay. Well, Trey, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Busy, man. Just you
Yeah.
know, just hopping and popping. Yeah, since I retired, I thought I would have a nice, easy, calm life, but it has been anything but. But that's good. It keeps me out of the juke joint. You know, I don't have enough bail to, get out of jail. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Heck yeah. Well, Mr. Trey, tell everybody a little bit about you because the possibility of somebody living under a rock and not knowing is possible. So tell us who you are, brother.
Oh gosh, what I tell people, and this is the way I always, start off. I am a regular guy. I am nothing special. I've just had some kind of irregular things happen and been exposed to in my life. I started off as a child of the 70s. Watching shows like, In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, Sasquatch, The Legend of Bigfoot, the famous kind of mock documentary, and I've got a poster right over my shoulder for that film. I love that stuff when I was a kid. And so I was like this little maladaptive sponge, I love this stuff. I just soaked it in, when we'd go on field trips, other little boys would sit on the bus reading their football magazines. And, not that I don't like football, I do, but they'd be reading their sports magazines, and I'm over here with a Bigfoot or a UFO magazine. That was me. So, I got older, graduated high school. I grew up in Atlanta. I went to the University of West Georgia, which has a humanistic and transpersonal psychology department. And I studied under people like the famous parapsychologist, Dr. William Roll. So, it was like really a really cool place to kind of, for the little, weirdo like I was, it was really kind of a cool place to go to university.
Yeah.
I was commissioned as an Army officer in branched intelligence. I went into the U.S. Army Reserves, went and spent 6 months at the U.S. Army's intelligence school out at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. So I learned, kind of how to look at things very, very systematically, and a lot of attention to detail. I was injured, unfortunately, a service-connected injury, and was medically discharged, and I went to work for the U.S. Army as a civil servant. While I was a civil servant, I did everything from, let me back up, I was a security specialist, what they call a 080 security specialist. I did everything from the protection of non-nuclear missiles and rockets, chemical weapons security, intelligence, counterintelligence, anti-terrorism, operation security, personnel security, information security, protection of classified assets and information. Went over to Afghanistan for a while, did a stint over there as an operations and anti-terrorism officer, came back. And kind of during that time, I, started getting interested in, ghost stuff. I kind of started off as a ghost guy.
Yeah.
And I found out that, the more I looked into it, and especially the one site that we have, here in the South that I've really looked into, that you can't pigeonhole yourself. Nope. And so, what I try to do is really expand my, my interest and my knowledge base. I went and I became a certified field investigator for MUFON. And hey, good news, I just found out I'm speaking at the International MUFON Symposium this year. So I just got that news today. So I'm excited about that. So
heck yeah, that's awesome, bro.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. And so, I started looking at this stuff from different aspects. So I reached out into the Bigfoot world. And there was the legendary Bob Wilson, Grumpy Wilson from, the TV show Bigfoot is Real. He and I became just really good friends, very, very good friends, like going over to each other's houses and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I kind of learned a lot of the Bigfoot stuff from him, the serious Bigfooting. And, you got to spend some time in the woods with me with other very famous, well-known names in the Bigfoot world. So,
right.
So I've kind of got the UFO world, the Bigfoot world and the ghost world kind of all sort of figured out, as a novice. And I started seeing that, you can't really isolate these things. You can't just go through the world looking just through your Bigfoot optic, because holy crap, I've got paranormal stuff going on too. How do I fit that into this? And while I was out doing ghost hunting, maybe at a haunted cemetery, I saw UFOs. Okay,
Yep.
so I can't discount that. So, what I did is I basically, when people ask me what kind of researcher I am, I said, I'm a weird crapologist. If it's weird crap, then I'm there,
Right.
and I'll just, basically go where the data leads me, where the data, how it manifests. And during this journey, we established a group called the Anomalous Studies and Observation Group.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of ex-military, ex-law enforcement. And I think you saw how we operated a little bit,
Yes.
some of our equipment and loadout. And we're pretty serious about that. These are people that are used to high risk, high stress situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so ASOG has been looking at high strangeness for a while, and we approach it from a two tier method. One thing we do is we go through the empirical, which is looking at it from data driven, your data, your equipment, and all of that. But we also go through.
I don't know what just happened, but
did I lose you? Where did I?
We approached this from a two-tier.
Two tier. Okay.
God, it's still recording, and you're a trooper about it. Thank
Oh,
you.
that's no problem.
I think maybe the gremlins are getting a little bit upset with us. So.
Yes, adapt, overcome, and improvise. But we approach from two things. You have the empirical, which is data driven. All the your Geiger counters, your EMFs, your cameras, your thermals, your night vision, all of that data. But we also look at it from the experiential.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I came from a humanistic and transpersonal psychological background. So, kind of my philosophy and the philosophy of our team is, if there's not a human being to experience this phenomena, does it even really matter? It's a very human thing.
Yeah.
So we try to put as much value in the human experience as we do in the empirical. Now, what's really cool is when the two hit a nexus.
Right.
And one backs up the other. And that's when things get really exciting. So that's kind of our philosophical and our mission statement, and that's how we kind of approach things. And we've been doing it for over 10 years. So here we are.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Trey, before we start getting into meat and potatoes, is there any thing that you would like to promote, books, anything like that? I would love to direct people to you if I can, brother.
Oh gosh, yes. First of all, my website is TreyHudsonResearch.com, and I've got links to my books there and movies and all of that. Let me go ahead and do a shameless plug for both of my books.
Plug away.
The Meadow Project and Return to the Meadow.
Heck yeah.
You can find those on Amazon. Just go and look up Trey Hudson on the search bar, and they'll pop up. And they're in all the formats. Had a little bit of a problem with some licensing in France, but we finally got that worked out. So, they're in all the formats. So they're right there for folks' perusal. I happen to think they're good books. I enjoyed writing them. And it's basically our experience at the Meadow, which is a place that has been compared to Skinwalker Ranch. It's that weird. Matter of fact, Ryan Skinner, the man who wrote the book on Skinwalker Ranch, says it's every bit as weird as Skinwalker Ranch. So those are my two books. I've got a movie out done through Merkel Films called The Meadow Project. And you can find that at www.merkelfilms.com. That's Tony Merkel and Ward Heine from Dark Hollow Studios helped us do that. So that's out there.
Cool.
And, if anybody wants to torture themselves by hearing my monotonous voice, the more, you can go and just type in Trey Hudson podcast, and there are a buttload of them out there. So, I'm, basically everything from, hair care tips to makeup and cooking shows. No, not really. No, just
I mean, it sounds interesting.
No, basically just weird stuff. And
okay.
And I'm I lecture all over the place. I will be, of course, in Gardendale into this month at the premiere of the Relic Films movie The Vanished. So I'm excited to be doing that. I was with you out in the LBL, and
Yeah.
unfortunately we can't really talk about what went on out there, but that's a film that'll be coming out from Relic Films.
I mean, to be fair, they've been all over YouTube talking about it, so I don't know if that even
Oh,
really
well.
matters this time
Well,
around. I think we're trying to build hype from what I can gather.
Yeah, I mean, there's one incident that I was involved in with a person using some technology that it got weird, really,
Yeah.
really, and you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
And it was like, it shocked me, and I'm like, okay, I'll just go with it. That's all I can do is just roll with it. And some of the revelations that came out of that were breathtaking. So I'll just go ahead and kind of throw that teaser out there.
Yeah, we won't go into too much as far as that stuff goes. We'll leave a lot of meat on the bone for folks.
Yeah,
but it was a great time, and it's going to be an amazing film. I'm 100% sure of.
So I've got that. I'll be speaking, of course, in Gardendale at the Relics Film event. I will be speaking in Arizona in March. I will be heading towards Wisconsin at the Contact Modality Expo in May. And then I'll be turning around and speaking at the MUFON International Symposium in August. And then I hope to be out at the Snippy the Horse UFO event in Colorado. I'm busy,
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Thanks for giving me some time, bro. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, you touched on something on your intro that I want to circle back to because it's so pertinent. Okay. And it's, you mentioned, you get into this looking into like ghosts and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, the Bigfoot and the UFOs, and all of a sudden you realize that these things are, as I tell my audience all the time, all connected. Little things about it, crop up whenever you're out there looking for one thing, all of a sudden something else is happening. Like that happens all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I mean, I don't know that I've been on an expedition yet where I haven't at least seen a couple of orbs and at least maybe one UFO. Like,
oh yeah,
it's just part of it, and as far as your research on the matter goes, like, what do you think about all that? Like, what does that say to you and everything that you bring to the table, I guess?
Yeah. I kind of look at it very holistically. Mm-hmm. And I believe what we're looking at is multifacets of the same diamond. We're looking at different elements of the same phenomena. Mm-hmm. And I think the more I research this, the more I experience this, the more people I talk to, the more books I read, the more scientific papers I peruse, I think the evidence is strong. And it's almost a fact that we are dealing with things that are extra dimensional. There are extra dimensions around us. I was trained as a remote viewer using the military style coordinate remote viewing, the same kind that, Paul Smith and, all those guys did. So it was the military style remote viewing. And, during my training, I was able to perceive things that there is no way that I would have known otherwise. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that is like proof positive that the human beings are multidimensional creatures.
Yeah.
Most of the time we spend it in the 3 dimensions, the Euclidean space that we operate in.
Right.
We are multidimensional creatures. So yes, there is an extra dimensional element to it. In my first book, when we started dealing with NHI, non-human intelligences, using different phenomena or different techniques like the Estes protocol and some other stuff, is I coined a term, and I kind of reached back into time and kind of tapped the shoulder of the famous author John Keel, and he used a term ultra terrestrials. I had to go get my brain kind of synced up there. Ultra terrestrials was the term he used. I kind of borrowed that, but I call these NHAs paradimensionals because they're outside of our dimension.
Yes.
So going back to your question, I'm kind of working my way back around to the question. I promise you. If my train gets derailed, just tell the little signalman to wave his flag and get me back on the right track, and I'll try to get to the station. But
bro, I chase squirrels all day long. Trust me, we're good. We're good.
what I think is happening is you have the phenomena and you have different elements, different realities of the phenomena. Now, we have to try to, not limit ourselves into our Euclidean three-dimensional thinking. We have to, be a little more open-minded.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. Imagine if you had a cruciform shape, like a cross,
Okay.
and this is an object existing in four-dimensional, let's say three-dimensional space. Let's say we're experiencing it in a two-dimensional space.
Okay.
And on one end of the cross, you have like a little Bigfoot, right? Okay. On the other end, you have like a little alien. And then on the one end, you have like a little ghost. And on the other end, you have maybe like something else. And as this multidimensional object comes and touches down into our two-dimensional, you might see a Bigfoot. You might see a ghost. You might see an alien. But they're all parts of the same experience. They're all parts of the same phenomena. It's just it presents itself as it reduces down dimensions in a different way. So, and I think that's why if you go and you really start researching, and this is how we found the Meadow, is if you, I was an old Cold War intel guy. So, we were the Cold War, we rode horses and, and all that good stuff. And you used telegraphs. No, we didn't really ride horses. But, it was very kind of lower tech than it is now. But, when we would do our intelligence, what we called IPB, intelligence preparation of the battlefield, we had big maps, paper maps with acetate plastic laid over, and we had markers, and we would draw, certain symbols for different kind of maneuver, elements and different types of equipment that the enemy may have. And we were focused on the Soviets mostly back then.
Right.
And so kind of using that philosophy, what I found is if you take a map of an area, and you have an acetate, and it's like, okay, I'm going to start marking all UFO stuff. And I've got like a blue marker. And I go to like, MUFON's database. I go to the National UFO Reporting Center, and I start marking all these UFOs. So I take that acetate down and I put up a new one. I say, okay, I'm going to start looking for Bigfoot. So I go to like BFRO, and I start making little brown dots, for Bigfoot. And I take that down and I put a new piece up, and I said, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to folklorically look at ghost sightings and ghost reports. So I go back in old newspapers and folklore, and I make yellow dots for ghosts. And now I take the three pieces of acetate and I lay them on top of each other. I'm going to see clusters. Okay. And those clusters are where you have areas of extreme high strangeness.
Right.
And those are the areas where you can go, and odds are you're probably going to have a very unique experience yourself. So, that's the analysis part of it. And I think that there are certain places on Earth, and I really don't know why. If anybody in this business comes up and tells you they know what's going on, either they're a fool or a liar, because nobody knows what's going on. We're just taking, guesses.
Right.
But there seems to be something, geographically, perhaps there's something about dimensions are thinner. And I don't mean to get all Stranger Things-ish, but, there's some, there's some logic to the way, some of the things that they present in that show. And there may be some places where the veil, whatever the veil is a little thinner, and information,
right,
entities, data, knowledge can pass through and drop into these lower dimensions, i.e. our lower dimension and the third dimension. So, I think what I tell people is, hey, do your research. You might have one of these places within 5 miles of where you're sitting right now. And just go out there and make it happen. Live your own adventure. Don't live, vicariously through guys like me. Do your own stuff. Do your own adventure.
Right.
But here's my warning. I'm like that big label on the side of a cigarette pack. Warning, there is a danger to this.
Yes.
There is a danger. People die. People get sick. Okay, I'm dealing with something right now that has the doctors absolutely baffled. They can't figure it out. It's basically a genetic disease seen in babies, only in babies, but I'm a 61-year-old man. So why do I have this disease? So, there's something about these places where people that have encountered instances of extreme high strangeness, even Dr. Gary Nolan talks about this in his papers, and Defense Intelligence Agency has researched it, that you can get hurt doing this. So, I always have to throw that warning out there to people that are listening that, oh yeah, man, I'm going to go, I'm going to get my, my voice recorder on my phone, and I'm going to go get a camera, and I'm going to, be careful, because there is some stuff, and you and I were talking before the show about equipping yourself, with Geiger counters and some EMF uh, uh, EMF meters, tri-field meters, and perhaps frequency counters. So when you start getting bombarded by a lot of frequencies up in the gigahertz range, maybe you ought to back off, because that stuff can really hurt you. Anyway, in my second book, I wrote a whole chapter about physical effects, and I do the Cash Lundrum, famous Cash Lundrum case, and then kind of expand on that, on non-ionizing radiation and effects of people that have encountered high strangeness and all of that. So that's my warning. That's okay. And the Surgeon General will kind of tootle off stage now, and let's get back to our regular programming.
To be fair, man, I mean, that's perfect. Because I have this conversation, maybe I try to keep it civil, so we'll say conversation with folks a lot, and they're like, oh yeah, I was out there and I got hit with the infrasound or whatever, and I'm like, okay, well, explain that to me, because I've been hit by it really hard too. And to me, like, I'm not convinced at all that it's infrasound or ultrasound, or however you want to phrase it, like in the classical definition. I think it's some kind of spectrum of something on the radiation field. And the main reason why I say that is because, like, the hardest I've ever been hit was out in filming in Townsend, so the movie that's fixing to come out now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I swear it felt like a beam that hit me, and I got flushed and warm all over. I mean, I guess you could say that's a lot like microwaves, but
it's basically, it sounds like it's non-ionizing radiation, basically oscillating the surface cells, in your skin.
It felt like I was going through a CT scanner, and I had a huge amount of contrast. Like when they pump contrast into your IV, and you feel that radiate everywhere, and you get nauseous. Like, it felt exactly like that. I'm like, I don't think sound. I know sound can do parts of that. Like, I've looked into, like, the sonic weapons and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this seems a little bit more specialized and feels more along the radiation band to me. I mean, because radiation produces a sound anyways. You just got to be able to pick it up with the right, equipment. So I mean, tomato to me. So I'm loving what you're saying, man.
Yeah. And we've had people get zapped, and we had one member say, well, it was infrasound. It's like, people that talk about hallucinations on infrasound is because the fluid in your eyeballs is oscillating at about 19 hertz, and it causes shadows in your periphery. Mm-hmm. These people actually experience, some team members, a change of their environment. Mm-hmm. And the one person said it was like they entered the upside down. That's the term they used, that the world that they were in before this happened wasn't there anymore. They were somewhere else.
Right.
And they didn't even know if they were real. When our first team member of our quick response force got to them, the team member reached out and touched that person and said, "Are you real? Are you real?" And that's how serious it was. So you're talking about, sometimes it's other than just, having a queasy stomach. Sometimes it gets really weird.
Oh,
and you've got to be really well grounded to deal with that. You talk about potential PTSD and stuff like that. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can only imagine, No. Yeah, I mean, it's a serious thing, and folks out there in the future YouTube land or wherever that's viewing this, be careful, be mindful, and do what you can. So yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Now, okay, so that was awesome. I appreciate you validating some of my thoughts on that. I appreciate that a lot. Let's see here. Where should I go with this next? I would like to hear a little bit about the Meadow, if you don't mind.
The Meadow, yes, that's it seems to be on everybody's mind. The Meadow,
right?
Oh yeah, it's bizarre. It's one of those places that's very special. It's in the South, and that's all I will tell people. It's in America's Southland, and I do not disclose the location or the state or anything. And everybody that goes out there and researches with me signs a non-disclosure agreement. And in my little file over here of NDAs, you would recognize some very big names who have signed NDAs. So, I pretty much put everybody through it.
Good.
And but it's one of those places that we found pretty much through research. It was an area that was really known for Bigfoot, UFO, a lot of folkloric ghost stories. In the first book, the first section of it, I talk about basically all these stories about this area.
Mm-hmm.
And we started researching the Meadow, and right off the bat, we had an amazing UFO encounter. Bob Wilson had noticed he was at base camp by himself, a white orb come up and move sideways across the sky and then wink out, which was very strange. Saw orbs up on top of the up on top of the hill, but the orb he saw was a huge light in the sky, almost like the moon. So it's like, well, crap, this is a pretty cool place to research. So let's really focus on this area, because we were kind of out chasing some folklore on ghost and Bigfoot, but this area turned out to be more interesting. And it turns out near our base camp, there was a big open field or meadow, about 8 acres. And it was really a cool place to research logistically for several reasons. Number one, it's a big open area. So you can put teams out on the periphery of it with night vision and thermals. They've got a big open expanse to surveil. Number two is it's a huge natural track trap. Anything moving across this, they're going to leave some evidence of them traversing it.
Right.
Number three, to the south, there's a tall ridge that we could put teams up looking down, into the meadow. And number four, it had a wide expanse of open sky, where we could see, maybe UFOs or anything like that. So logistically, it was just a really cool place to research. So the first time we really started looking at it in 2016, we had a team member that had missing time. That same team member was observed by 2 other team members turn into a ball of energy and move rapidly across the field and then turn back into himself. And the 2 individuals that saw that, one was had dual degrees in Georgia Tech from physics and philosophy. The other one has a degree from Georgia Tech in management. He has a master's degree in public administration. One was a career person in emergency services. The other worked with General Motors and AI and AI vehicles. So these are, and also the AI guy was also a veteran of the U.S. Army 75th Ranger Regiment. So he's a special operations guy. So these are really grounded people, no kidding, grounded people. And they saw him turn into a ball of light. So it's like, oh, well, okay, that's kind of cool. Our first time really researching, we hit pay dirt. The next day, Bob Wilson was a guy that turned into the ball of energy. On his GPS, his track line showed him being on the other side of this small river, which he never went to. It showed him doing straight line tracks, to different areas of 1 kilometer or 2 long, and you can't travel in a straight line over this terrain. It's too rugged. So how do you travel over rugged terrain in a straight line?
Right. Yeah, that makes no sense at all.
You're in the air. So what happened during his missing time? So, that was our first trip out. First time we really got everyone together and started looking. And it's like, oh, hey, pay dirt,
Yeah, we're going to go back there for sure.
So it's like, it's like, okay, this is, this is what everybody talks about. This is what they dream about when they go research. First time out the chute. This is probably the apex of our research. We just have to be happy with this and take, whatever comes. We were wrong. We were wrong. The next time we went out in February of 2017, we had teams up on top of the ridge that started seeing cubes down in the meadow on their thermals. And, the first person that saw it was Daryl Neese. And he said, hey, he goes, why is there a telephone interchange in the west end of the meadow? I'd never noticed that before. That doesn't even make sense. He goes, I would have noticed that. And I said, what are you talking about? Because, like those boxes you see on the side of, a telephone exchange, where the fiber optics and all that stuff comes in. I'm like,
right.
Here, let me see. And he passes his thermal back to me, and I look through it, and I'm like, dude, those are deer. And he goes, well, give me that back. And he looks, he says, you're right, those are deer. Where did the box go? And I'm like, maybe you were confused. We all have a normalcy box, okay? And whenever things get weird, we open up the top of our normalcy box and we dive in. We try to stay normal. We try to rationalize everything.
Yeah.
And That's what he was doing. Is like, okay, maybe I misidentified it. Maybe it was deer. So it wasn't deer. Okay,
Right.
so
For
then
sure.
Bob takes up his thermal and he sees an entity.
Mm.
And I'm not going to say humanoid shaped. I'm going to say human sized. Okay, it was maybe about 6 foot tall. Maybe about 18 inches wide. And on his thermal, we have this on tape. As you see it go from tall, small, tall, small, tall, small, tall. Then it splits into two entities and winks out. It's like, okay, that was kind of cool. And one thing we do in ASOG is we have a tactical commander in the field. And what he or she does is everybody has an assignment. You go to this listening LPOP, listening post, observation post. You do not get off a station unless you seek permission. So we don't have people running around willy-nilly on their own. Everybody actually asks permission from the tactical commander. Can I move from station da-da-da to da-da-da? Hey, team, all field units, team 4 is moving location, be advised, let us know when you're on station. So, we don't have people running around willy-nilly. So this was not our team members that we captured. And so then we start getting radio traffic about the teams that are actually down in the meadow starting to see cubes or boxes appear. So we quickly we drop down off the ridge, get down to the meadow. We move over to the team that's experiencing this, and they say, yeah, we saw them over here. It disappeared. We saw one here. It disappeared. And we saw one right there, and it slowly dissipated. And they say, we can still kind of see the vague outline of it, but it's pretty much dissipated. And we said, okay, we're going to dispatch a team over to it. So we dispatched a team, and when they got to the edge of where this thing was, their thermal signatures completely disappeared, gone, like they never existed. And I actually had this footage was featured on the Discovery Channel, and they had 3 independent analysts look at this footage, and they're like, we have nothing. We don't know what happened to those people.
Right.
And we've gone back and tried to recreate it. And this is all, if you go and take a look at the Meadow Project film, this is all outlined pretty well in the film. And we can't recreate it. It's like they stepped into another dimension because they described it as being colder when they stepped into it. They just described it as being very dark, very quiet. Spent about 90 seconds in it, turned in and came out. And the interesting thing is when they went into it, they walked in unimpeded. When they came out the exact same route, there were branches and brambles that weren't there before. So it's like there were 2 realities existing at the same time. It's like on the quantum scale, the classic example is the dual slit experiment, where light is both a wave and a particle at the same time. Depends on when you observe it, right? But this is happening on a macro scale. And if you go back to our 2016 experience, Bob was a man and he was a ball of light, but he was both at the same time. And when they asked Bob, what was it like when you turn into a ball of light? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just walked over here. So once again, 2 realities existing at the same time, at the same place. So that's what happened to us. Now, the bad news is 4 people went into that cube. Only half of them are still alive.
Yeah.
So, there's the cold, hard reality of that.
Right.
So,
and it was both fast-acting cancer, wasn't it?
Well, Bob's cancer was in remission and had been for a very long time. And then it came back with a vengeance. I mean, just, ruthless.
Yeah.
And then Tim, that was during COVID. So he never really got to, really know exactly what happened to him. But the symptoms, as they were described to us, sounded like a pulmonary edema. And I'm not going to get into the graphic descriptions of that. It's pretty horrible. But it was quick. It was really, really quick. And then I'm number 3, and I'm dealing with some mysterious genetic stuff now. And as far as I know, number 4, hasn't suffered any ill effects. So, it's just kind of the way it is. So that was our second trip of really looking into it. But since then, we have had the phenomena evolves. That's the weird thing, is it's not
Right.
just content just being there like, boxes and cubes. We have gone and we've done some SD session out in the Meadow. And the transcript of that session is in my second book. And everybody that I've ever shown the video to, I say, okay, use your own judgment. Do you think that we were contacting and communicating with an intelligent entity? And almost to a person, after seeing that video, everybody raises their hand. The SD method is where you have a person listening to a ghost box through earbuds, but they have shooting muffs over it and a blindfold, and they don't know what questions are being asked to them.
Right.
And the interesting thing about the Estes thing is Greg actually came and did some research with us at the Meadow.
You're reading my mind.
Yeah, and while he and I were doing the Estes session, the cinematographer and the PA production assistant were seeing shadow people around him. And the cool thing is, we captured one on film. Right behind Greg and I. So shadow people are another thing that's really common. One of my team members said, the first time he went out there, he's like, yeah, I've heard about the Meadow, blah, blah, blah. And he gets out there and he goes, it's like Grand Central Station. There's like these shadow people everywhere, just constantly moving around you. So that's, that's some of the stuff that's going on out at the Meadow.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that, like, I'm going to touch on two things real quick. I'm sorry to derail you, brother. I'm not trying to, but you're covering so much ground and hitting on so many things, man. Like it's perfect. And,
let me just step out of here. I'm getting a cramp, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. So the interesting thing, first of all, like, I like the definition that people use to describe the jinn and have for, centuries or whatever. It's not that I prescribe or condone anything about that particular religion. However, I will say that people that are the ancient Canaanites and that have been dealing with that since time immemorial probably have a good understanding of it. And they say, creatures of smoke and shadow that live at a right angle to a right angle of us, right? Makes a whole lot of sense to me. Now, the other thing, before I get away from it, is when you talk about Greg and his Estes method. And, I remember in the movie for, I believe it was LBL, right? Yeah.
It was like first half was like Meadow, and then the second half was LBL. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cryptic Expedition. I'm looking at the poster right now in front of me. But anyways, like, I remember one of the questions asked to him, or not to him, but, the area, was, who's responsible for this? And, clear as day, he said Nephilim. And it's like, say what you will about, like, a ghost box, going through frequencies and all that, but the likelihood of that being broadcast out there on some radio station and causing some kind of interference is so infinitesimally small. Like, I don't even know how to calculate that.
Yeah.
Like, that is so telling. It's so telling. But anyways, I had to get that out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I've had people, throw criticism at me saying, you're basically a technomancer, communicating with these entities. And the way, and that's a fair criticism. I will acquiesce to that being a criticism. Here's the way I look at it is, you're walking through the forest and you see a house in the forest. And you're like, oh, kind of cool. There's a house out here. And you go to it and you knock on the door and you say, hey, I'm Trey Hudson. I was out walking in the forest and saw your house and just wanted to stop by and say hi. And you hear a voice on the other side. It says, hey, I'm here, thanks for stopping by. And you say, hey, can you open the door so I can take a look at you? And they're like, no, I'd rather just stay in here on this side of the door if that's fine. But, let's talk. Let's visit. Why would you automatically assume the voice on the other side of that door is evil? Why would you make that assumption?
Right. All right.
You've got the fruits of the spirit. So does that not make sense? There are fruits of evil. And until whatever it is shows the fruits of evil, let's not jump to conclusions.
Right.
So
we are supposed to try the spirit by the spirit, right?
Yeah. So
we have methods to do it, and there's no reason why anything from any particular persuasion couldn't
Yeah.
chat with you. So
Right.
yeah, I'm down with what you're saying. You know, I understand the criticism.
And it's a fair criticism, you know, and if it's given in a questioning and respectful way, I will, you know, respond in like and kind in a respectful way and say, you know, this is my opinion. And some people, you know, say, you know, if you do, you know, SDs or you do some of the other, you know, God helmet stuff and all of that, you know, we don't respectfully don't want to be a part of it. And I'm like, that's cool. That's, you know, that's your, you know, that's your thing.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, you know, and
Yeah.
For me, you know, what I would just say is just that, you know, theoretically, I mean, well, not even theoretically. I mean, when we read the Bible, I mean, we know that things are already around us all the time, trying to make us slip up. I mean, it's just part of it. And now all of a sudden, you're just maybe able to hear a little bit extra of what's going on. Like, I don't see that much of a big deal about it. But I mean, if anybody out there does, hey, that's fine, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so is what it is. I mean, there ain't no difference in doing that and going out and looking for Bigfoot, in my opinion. So,
Oh no, there's not. You know, you're just, you know, God made us inquisitive, so
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
but you know, like I said, the phenomena is changing. You know, and we had some kind of interesting stuff. Like in January of 2020, we had gone back to the Meadow, and I was Kristen Payton. I think you met her at Land Between the Lakes. She and I went out during the day to do baseline readings of the areas where we had this high strangeness, and we were going to record electromagnetic fields, radiation. You know, just your basic, you know, boring empirical data collecting stuff that nobody wants to talk about because it's just, you know, boring as crap. But so we were out doing that, and we decided to go to the other side of that small river to our north. And I call it a small river, a large creek. You know, it's you know quite a ways out there, but it's, you know, it's fordable. You can ford it, you know, on foot. So this was in January 2020. So we rolled up our pants legs, took our boots off, and we walked over there. So when I get to the other side of the creek, I walk out, and there's another big field, you know, another big open area, and I'm like, this is so cool. And, you know, we kind of got separated through the reeds and, you know, brush and stuff. And I said, hey, Kristen, this is really cool. You need to come over here and check this out. There's another big field over here. We can run concurrent investigations. And she goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, this is just so cool. You know, it's, you know, we can like have teams on both sides of this thing, you know, and we can, you know, it's shallow enough we can move across. She goes, don't move. I'm coming to you. And she wades back out of the creek. I'd gone over and sat on a log and put my boots on. She goes, what are you talking about? And I'm like, isn't this cool? She goes, Trey, you're in the Meadow. I'm like, no, I'm not. She goes, look around. I'm like, no, this is something totally new. Now, to give you a little bit of background, I'm an Eagle Scout. I've earned the Boy Scout Award, the 50-mile award 3 times. I've backpacked all over North America. I've hunted big game in Africa. You know, I, you know, spent most of my life in the woods. You know, I'm pretty experienced. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm a pretty experienced outdoorsman.
Right.
I did not know where I was. And I was in a place I'd probably been to 30 times, and I didn't recognize it. And she goes, you came out the place you went in. You never crossed the creek. And it was like somebody hit me with a frying pan.
Whoa.
And I was so disoriented, and she radioed back to base camp. She goes, hey, we need a team over here to help extract him. Something's bad wrong. And I said, okay, I'm taking command. You know, I'm what they call ASOG actual, which is the director of ASOG. I'm going to take command. Leave me the F alone for 10 minutes. Let me get my wits back about me, and then I'll drink something while I'm sitting here, and then we'll head back to camp. And I was so disoriented. If we hadn't followed our protocol of not going out by ourselves, always having communications back with base camp, always having a GPS map and compass with us, I might have ended up as one of David Paulides' chapters in one of his 411 books.
Yeah, you might have been a statistic right there, bro.
And the weird thing is we were running the logging capability on our Geiger counters, and at that exact moment, we had a radiation spike of 0.33 microsieverts per hour. The normal background radiation there is about 0.08 microsieverts per hour. So we had a radiation spike.
Right.
So, we went out later on that year. And like I said, so the phenomena is evolving. It's changing, as we become more comfortable with it and the more we experience it. In 2020 June is we went out and we tried this CE5 protocol, Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 protocol. And I see you kind of squinching your face up. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all of that.
No worries. It's just I have my experiences happened because of it. So I'm very much against it. But no, carry on. You're good.
But so we did the CE5 protocol and nothing happened. Nothing. And it's like, here we're in a field, probably half of the people we were with in the Meadow were trained remote viewers. Something should have happened and nothing happened. Okay, fast forward to the next morning. One of my team members, a fellow by the name of Tony, graduated the U.S. Air Force Academy, did several years in U.S. Air Force Special Operations. Now I'm not going to tell you what he does, but he goes all over the world in his civilian life, and is an expert in his field. Tony comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Trey," he goes, "I need to ask you a question." And so, we're kind of starting to get our gear together, and so Sunday morning we're going to leave. And I said, "Yeah, what's going on, Tony?" Because, I woke up this morning about 5:30, and he goes, "I had this term etched in my mind." And the term was Nox Magby. And he said, if you spelled it phonetically, it would be like Nox, November, Oscar, X-ray, Magby, Mike, Alpha, Golf, Bravo, Echo, Echo, Nox Magby. Does that mean anything to you? And I said, no. And he goes, and then again at 06:30, I woke up with this just term in my mind. And he goes, can just tell me what you think? I said, I don't know, Tony. I said, I'll look into it. I'll research it, but I can't promise anything. So I started kind of digging into it. And I found out the term Nox, Nox, is the name of the Roman goddess of the night. Okay. It was stolen from the Greek goddess Nyx. So you've got the goddess of the night. Magby was a little more difficult. So I started looking at different phonetic spellings and all. And I found the word Magba, which is from the Old English poem Beowulf. Okay. Now remember, Beowulf is written in Old English. Old English was at the very end of the Roman occupation. So the term Nox and Old English are contemporaneous. A person who was familiar with the Old English word Magby would probably be also familiar with the Roman belief system of God and goddesses. So, and it turns out Magby means children or kindred. Okay. So you put that together, you have children of the night goddess. Now remember, we were doing a CE5 protocol. So you put that together, you have children of the night goddess. So what are small like children that come and visit people at night that have big heads like children? And I'll give you a hint. One of them is on the cover of Whitley Strieber's book.
Yeah. Grays, Elemental, Fae,
Right.
whatever you want to call them. They go by many names all throughout history.
So now we're having mind speak. It's communicating with us, without the equipment.
Yeah.
So it gets even weirder. So in July, the next month, unfortunately, one of the members of the Cube exploration team passed away. And literally, we had scheduled another outing in the month of June or July of 2020. So we decided to go ahead and go with it. Go ahead and go, but we would do it in his honor. So there were a lot of tears. There were a lot of glasses of bourbon raised in his honor. There was a hell of a lot of laughter. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
Good guy. It was Tim. And, but we decided it wouldn't be complete without going out to the Meadow. So we go out to the Meadow, and across the area where I had exited the Meadow, stepped into the creek, and then re-entered the Meadow and was confused. Across from that, probably maybe 10 yards out in the creek, there's a small island. When I say a small island, I'm talking maybe 12 feet long by maybe 3 feet wide, just very small, real brushy. And up in the middle of that, there was a sapling. And I'm going to see if I can find my picture here to show you. And that sapling at the top of it, and let me back up. Imagine a sapling about 12 feet tall, maybe an inch and a half wide,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of this small island. And the top of the sapling has been rolled over and fastened into the perfect form of an oval. Now, where it gets weird is you can't climb up this. And here's a picture of the oval. Let's see if I can. And you can see.
Yep.
You can see the oval. That's the exact shape of the top of an ankh. Okay.
Good point.
And so the sapling is too small. You can't climb up there. You can't climb up it. You can't get a ladder out to it in this small island. You can't bend it over without breaking it.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that sapling get formed into a perfect oval, almost at the exact same spot where I became disoriented and 40 meters from where the cube was? What is the significance of that symbol of the ankh? Well, when I was in Egypt 2 years ago, I saw a lot of ankhs.
Mm-hmm.
And where they were predominantly in tombs, which were gateways.
Mm-hmm.
It also corresponds to something called the galactic keyway, which is another motif of basically a vertical with an oval on top, or a keyway, which usually is used to signify gateways or transition points from this world to the next.
Mm.
The phenomena is changing. It's communicating with us in ways that we were not expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's starting to send us different messages. So I'm going to fast forward.
Wow.
Let's see. Fast forward. This is May of 2023. We started using a technology called the God helmet. And when I say God, don't, everybody's, you're being blasphemous. No, don't. That's just what it's called. Right. It was designed by a gentleman named Michael Persinger, Dr. Michael Persinger at L'Oreal University in Canada, and with his research assistant, Stanley Coren. And they were exploring what causes mystic experiences. There's a certain part of the brain that seems to be illuminated, electromagnetically illuminated whenever somebody has a religious experience. So they were wondering if they could create the same experiences externally. So they developed a helmet with electromagnets on it that would stimulate certain parts of the brain, and to see if people would have similar experiences. And they found out, yes, they can. They can generate these experiences, and people reported experiences of presence, visions, all this other stuff going on. So ASOG acquired a God helmet. And the cool thing about our God helmet is it's field deployable. It's all self-contained. We can take it anywhere. I think you might have seen it in use, at the LBL.
Yep.
And so, we started doing that. And my theory is that if you have an individual on your crew or your expedition that does this, it kind of like is putting out a sign, hey, we're here. If you want to talk, we're here. It's kind of like if you were in a crowd of people and one of the member of your group goes over and talks to this other group, introduces himself and comes back. Some of that group might come over and introduce themselves to people that never went over there initially. So it kind of primes the pump for high strangeness. So we did that. And we have on our team, we have a psychotherapist, like a licensed, no kidding, psychotherapist. And he and his wife had come, and they were sitting up on top of the ridge with Daryl Neese, one of my more senior researchers. And the wife, Christy, she says, I'm starting to get this feeling like something slinking around watching us. This was in May of 2023. Because it's like, she goes, it seems like I get this feeling like Gollum is like slinking around. It's like, well, that's interesting. And she goes, I'm not comfortable here. I want to leave. Is that okay? And Daryl says, of course it's okay. We don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. That's not what we're here for.
Right.
So she had the idea of something slinking around. And so while they're moving back down the ridge, Greg is with me. He's on the team with me. Greg looks up and he sees right below them, just below their field of vision on the ridge, this orb following them as they're walking along the trail, because we could see their headlamps. And there's this orb down below, not on a trail, pacing them. So it's like, okay, that's kind of odd. And So the next morning, the wife, Christy, who was having these feelings, comes up to me. She said, "Hey, I want to tell you about this dream I had." She said, "I had this dream that we were in our tent and the top of the tent became translucent and there was a woman and a young man. And they took us up to this place and showed us this whiteboard and they drew these symbols on them. And the symbols were a spiral, a squared off spiral, and then a squared off spiral with an eye. Does that mean anything?" And here's actually a picture of what she drew. These are her actual drawings.
Interesting.
And so she says, "Does that mean anything?" And I said, "Okay, Christy, let me ask you a question. Do you know the historical significance of pictographs or petroglyphs of spirals?" And she goes, "No." And I said, "They're usually used to mark a portal or a gateway. They're used by and shamanistic practices to signify that narrowing of the worlds."
Right.
And I said, "So have you read my books? Have you heard me on any podcast? Do you know anything at all about the Meadow Project?" And she says, "No." And I said, "Our portal or gateway was square, like your squared portal or your squared spiral."
Mm.
And the third symbol she drew was an eye inside of a squared off, like the NHI was in, the middle of that portal. Next night, we go back out. One of my thermal operators, Lee, we get back, we're doing the debriefing, and he said, "Hey," he goes, we were kind of going over it, saying, what did everybody experience? And he goes, "Yeah," he goes, "My thermal, I captured," he goes, "I think it was a hog or like a small bear moving across the meadow." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, it was like this big heat signature kind of slinking along." I said, "You recorded it, right?" And he goes, No, because we were talking about, wildlife, and I figured it was like a bear or a feral hog." I said, "Lee, we had 12 people in the meadow, completely surrounding the meadow. What animal is going to move across an open space surrounded by 12 human beings?" And I said, "What did Christy talk about last night?" And he goes, "Oh, crap, something low and slinking across the ground." I said, "Yeah, that was precognition.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's actually allowing people to see a bit into the future through dreams."
Wow.
So, it's the phenomena is changing. It's
Bro.
it is bringing something new to us every time we go out. And it's
Yeah.
what I'm telling people now is it's kind of like I'll tell you a little bit about the experience. There's another area that we research in another state, and this was not an ASOG expedition. It had a lot of ASOG members. We kind of cross-pollinate different groups, but we were out there looking for Bigfoot. Now, this is an area where we've been out there several times before, and some of the thermal footage of cryptids that have been captured at this location are. This is going to get weird, but since we're in the weird world, we'll go ahead and roll with it.
Yeah.
Is the hominids that were captured on thermal? They are just a few degrees different from the ambient temperature of the environment. They're not quite white hot like you would think to see a primate. They're just a little bit warmer or just a little bit colder than the environment, and we've seen that at the Meadow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what's going on at this place. So we go out there thinking we're going to go look for Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one team member, Sean, who's been out of the Meadow many times, and we had another new member to Seekers, which was a group that we were out there, Southeast Cryptid Research. Mm-hmm. She was brand new, first time I ever out in the field. So she and Sean are sitting up on a place.
Miss Jamie?
Yeah, Jamie.
Okay, yeah, she's coming on in February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was she'll tell you about this. It was weird. Mm-hmm. And so she was sitting in a place we call Ambush Alley, because basically it's like a high hill, mm-hmm. and it's like where you would ambush somebody if they were moving along the road. So it was Ambush Alley. So we're thinking, okay, we're out here doing our Bigfoot stuff. They're at Ambush Alley, and then Kristen and another Tony were down at the place we call the Pipes, which are big culverts, and then Angie and I were up the trail up near a pond, and we were all about a quarter of a mile from each other. And Sean comes on the radio. Now, you've met Sean.
Yeah.
He's like a retired cop, former Marine, no nonsense kind of guy. He comes on and he says, it's happening. They're all around us. And it's like, okay, cool. You know, stuff's going on. You know, this is kind of what we're here for. And then he comes over the radio and he says something. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but Daryl comes on the radio and goes, are you all right? And he says, I don't know. And it's like, crap, for him to say, I don't know if I'm all right, something's not right. So we like, okay, we're vectoring teams into them, you know, immediately. Yeah. So the closest team to be the QRF, quick response force, was Kristen and Tony. So they get up to them. And when they finally reach them, Kristen reaches out to Tony and grabs him and says, are you real? Are you real? I want to make sure you're real. And so during the debriefing there in the field, what they described is they were sitting there and this like fog moved in. Now, which is really interesting, if you go back and you read the book Dark Matter Monsters by Dr. Simeon Hine, he talks about like this fog moving in. And he talks about extreme vacuum, exotic vacuum objects, and, you know, a lot of physics there. But, you know, they had this fog moving, and then they said that the environment was different. And they didn't know if they were sitting or standing. And at one time, she reaches over and grabs Sean to ground herself because she didn't know where they were. Right. And her phone shows them missing about 40 minutes of time. And it shows them being in a little opening, probably about 40 yards from where they were sitting, but they never went there. They never got out of their chairs. And she said it was like the upside down in Stranger Things. It's like it was not this world. It was kind of like an image of this world, but they were somewhere else. They said that trees that were in front of them normally weren't there anymore. They were somewhere else. And so it was pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we started thinking about it, and, you know, we had another team member say, well, you know, they just got zapped by infrasound. It's like, yeah, no, infrasound does not do that. You know, it does not cause a complete change of your environment. You know, that oscillates, like I said, the fluids in your eyes at about 19 hertz. That's not the kind of hallucinations that this causes.
Right.
And so we had to come to the realization that the Meadow is not a location anymore. The location is a type of reality that follows you wherever you're at. It's not just located at that, you know, that mysterious place in whatever state it's in. It now, it's marked us.
Yeah.
And it follows us.
Yep.
Okay, another weird story. To give you an idea how it follows you. I've got tons.
Okay.
And I'm going to see if I can find my photographs here. Is one of the things that was talked about in the Robert Bigelow NIDS, National Institute for Discovery Science stuff at Skinwalker Ranch, is let's see if I've got the name of the guy here. Is it Attenborough? Anyway, one of the researchers out there, he noticed that when he got done with the work out there at Skinwalker Ranch under NIDS, he went back to his location where he lives in Virginia, suburban Virginia, and his family started noticing large canine, animals moving through their backyard. And Axelrod, it says, this is from Keller, and said, for more than a dozen years following his July 2009 and subsequent trips to the ranch, Axelrod's wife and then teenage children were subjected to nightmarish dogmen appearing in their backyard, end quote. So they started having this dogmen nexus. So you go to Marley Woods, if you go and you talk to, the Marley Wood folks and all of that, they dogmen there, dogmen at the, LBL. 40 yards from where I'm sitting right now. Now I'm sitting I've got 8 acres. I've got a little cottage that I do my research out of, which is probably about 75 yards from the house, but 40 yards from here and about 40 yards from my backyard, is one night or one morning I found this. Now that is a print, a canine print. That scale is a forensic scale. Is 6 inches.
Wow.
That is a 6-inch canine.
Mm-hmm.
That's the track line. That's a 30-inch, 36-inch scale. That track line is bipedal.
Yes, it is.
That track line started and stopped.
I was about to say, what happened to the rest of the tracks?
There is no rest of the track. It just started, ran for about 40 inches, and then stopped.
Yep.
That's just right 40 yards right out here.
Mm-hmm.
It's communicating we are marked. And it wants to let us know that it's still here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to give away the Meadow Project film, but it affected people in a way that when they thought they had it figured out and they thought that they had it all boxed up, it reached out to them in a way and said, I'm still here. I'm still with you. And it was not at the Meadow. It was somewhere else.
Yep. Every time, bro.
So it's more interesting than playing golf. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, there's worse ways to go about retirement, right?
Yeah.
Way worse. Maybe more healthy, but way worse.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Trey, dude,
that's the Meadow.
Awesome. That was awesome, brother. Like, my mind's blown. Absolutely blown.
Cool thing is, I'll be there on Thursday. We're heading back on the 15th.
Heck yeah. Awesome. I'd love to hear about what happens. Well, bro, thank you for doing this.
You're quite welcome.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you got 15 minutes extra of a story that you can tell?
Oh gosh, 15 minutes. Once there was a man from Nantucket. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, if you kind of whatever's on your mind. I mean, this stuff there's such a rabbit trail in this stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
if you do, I'd love to make an overtime episode with you, and we'll just throw a little something at the wall.
And that's what this place does is when you think you have it wrestled down and you kind of maybe understand it. No, you don't. It'll throw you something new.
Right. Well, bro, that's awesome. That was amazing, and thank you for the extra little bit there. I'm gonna make that
you're welcome.
to an overtime. I appreciate that. Now let's pretend like that conversation never happened. And Mr. Trey, can you do me a favor? And before we get out of here, bro, can you plug your stuff one more time? Tell the people where to find you.
Yes, the best place to find me is go to the alley behind the liquor store. Look under the greasy cardboard box. I'm usually asleep under there. No, I'm kidding. That's not where I sleep. No, you can find me at TreyHudsonResearch.com. And I have links to all the books and films and everything. My 2 books are The Meadow Project and Return to the Meadow. Both talk about our experiences researching an area known as the South Skinwalker Ranch. I think it's pretty cool. There's a lot of neat stuff in there. We just talked about some of it.
Right.
So that can be found on Amazon, or you can go to my website and there's links there. You can type in Trey Hudson in the search bar on Amazon. The books will come up. It's in all the formats, ebooks, audiobooks, all of that. You can also go and take a look at the film called The Meadow Project, where you actually will get to see some of this stuff. And that can be found at merkelfilms.com. You just go to that website and you'll show films and click on Meadow Project, and it'll show you how to download, purchase the film, and watch it in the privacy of your own home. Speaking, I speak all over the U.S. Coming up soon is the premiere of the Relics film The Vanished. That's coming out really soon, so I will be there on the 31st of January in Gardendale Civic Center. So I'll be there. Just what I tell people is Facebook, Trey Hudson -author. I'm pretty approachable. If you got something to say, just come up and say it.
Heck yeah. And I can say that, You are a very tall person. You're very hard to miss, but you're also pretty cool. Real
Well,
talkable,
thank you.
real personable. Bro, I love hanging out with you guys, man. I had such a blast, and I'm so jealous of some of the equipment that you guys can deploy.
Yeah, we've
Oh, Lord.
yeah, and that's why I tell people buy the doggone books. I mean, we're self-funded. It's like
Yeah.
all the stuff we had laid out was privately purchased. It's so if you can help put a little money in our coffers, like the God helmet and the thermals and night vision, and all that's that's all out of pocket. So
I
buy
feel you.
the doggone books. Tell your
Yes.
friends.
Tell your mama and them. Well, with that being said, man, I appreciate you so much, and just hang out for just a second,
Sure.
and I'll be right back in the green room with you. Okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Wow. I mean, like my mind is blown. Absolutely. Trey is he's great people. I mean, he really is. I mean, he's such an awesome dude. And he's so approachable. Guys, like if y'all ever meet him like at a conference or whatever, go talk to him. He's such a good dude. He really is. He's got so much knowledge, about all this stuff, especially, not I'm on the technical side too, yeah, but I mean with everything else too, like the humanistic side of things too. I mean, because as we've hinted at, like this phenomenon, like it's not just one thing. It's not just nuts and bolts. It's not just ghostesses or whatever or swamp gas. I mean, there's so much that's going on, and it is all connected. I hate to break it to you, but it's all connected. It really, really is. And there's really not a whole lot of strings for me to have to pull on really to land this. I mean, I think we covered it all pretty good, truthfully. Um, one thing that I would like to point out that really struck me, and I wish I could have brought it up in the moment, but no sense in derailing the conversation because it's too good, right? But going like the experience of going into the portal, the cube, however you want to think of it as portal for me. Um, and then there's no resistance, right? But coming out, there is, and he's bringing up like brambles and this, that, and the other, like terrain that wasn't there before all of a sudden is on the way out. That's very, very interesting. I can't think of a story that I feel is legitimate that describes the exact same thing and them not having those exact same details. You know, I mean, just off the top of my head, there's BMR's friend who comes on and tells about it. Trees and the faces and all that. Like, that happened in that story too, if I'm not mistaken. But like, the one that's like really striking me is on the confessionals. Tony. The where they were out in the desert in Joshua Tree, right? I want to say 512, but I'm thinking that's the Dogman episode. I don't know. But I know you guys know what I'm talking about. The guy goes out to Joshua Tree and sees the rave thing and experiences all the people flying and then the portals and the vampire looking that story, right? And remember, like in that story, as dudes trying to get away, like all these brambles and stuff are like, and just general hindrances in the terrain are coming up to slow them down, right? I mean, that's just, it's one of those things, that pops up with this stuff. And, I mean, you can read into it in many different ways. I don't know the correct way. It's so, I mean, we can go along lines of, it's easy to get into something, but it's hard to get out of something, right? Yeah, I mean, whether that be trouble or somewhere you shouldn't be, like, I don't know. I don't know. But it's interesting, isn't it? Pretty odd, isn't it? Like, man, what's going on there? You know, I with this stuff to me, you know, I see it, you know, as a different dimension, like, and I see it as like kind of, you know, biblically speaking, like the second heaven, right? Like kind of like the spirit plane that's layered on top of, you know, our plane of existence. You know, that's where disembodied spirits of the Nephilim are and stuff like that. You know, according to Enoch and whatnot, right? So take that too for whatever you want. But you know, I feel like that's what's going on when you go into this place. Like, you know, it looks similar, but it's different. You know, and you yourself have to be different to experience it. And sometimes when you go into these things, you know, sometimes bad things happen. You know, I mean, more so than just, you know, things wanting to follow you out. I mean, that's always a common thread with all of it too. But I mean, there's real health side effects too. I mean, I don't think we're not really equipped to handle the levels of radiation and things that can come out of this place. You know, it's crazy. You know, I mean, shoot, like he and I were talking about before the show even started. Like you know, I'm very conscious of it. You know, I've been starting to, you know, come into equipment like that. You know, because like I worry about, you know, the amount of radiation that I get exposed to, you know, and all the electromagnetic phenomenon and all that, you know, and, you know, there's worse side effects of just, you know, my cameras getting fried or my SD cards getting fried and footage looking bad, audio looking bad, you know, things failing, you know, that sucks too. But I do worry about the health side effects, you know, I mean, like people get unalived, you know, from bad health side effects, you know, so, you know, it's one of those things, you know, don't be scared, but be prepared, you know, be mindful. You know, you don't, I mean, if you don't have the equipment, that's fine and dandy. Don't worry about that. But like if it starts feeling off, be looking out, you know, like shoot, you start warming up like you're in a microwave. It's time to go. It's time to go. If things look a little weird and they shouldn't be because you just looked at it a second ago, turn around, get back on trail. Be careful, be mindful. You know, I can't emphasize safety enough, you know, because you know it gets crazy out there. You know, we think that we live in a normal and predictable world, but the truth of the matter is you know the only thing that's normal and predictable is the things that we have artificially sanitized ourselves, right? With you know in the modern day, you know, we go back and listen to the stories our ancestors tell. Well, all of a sudden, it's a completely different story now, isn't it? And it has been all throughout time. It's like a war zone or something going on out there. It's neat, really neat. You know, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope we learned a few things, and I hope we all come away with this, you know, asking more questions of what's going on. You know, follow the rabbit holes and see what you can glean out of that. You know, chase the squirrels because I mean it's all connected. It's all connected. So, oh, and become a member while I'm thinking about it too, because we did an overtime episode. So you might be able to tell from that edit from earlier. Maybe not, but anyways, if you didn't tell, there's an overtime. So yay, yay! All right, all right. Now, even though I've just given myself a bit of a headache for editing, there's one last point that I want to end on. One last one. And you know, this is another thing that's just been in my head this whole time, and you know, once again, it's not even my saying. I've stolen it from my good buddy War Criminal, and you know, he said this when we were out filming Enigma in the Mystic Mountains, right? We were talking around campfire, and it's so true. It's so freaking true. You know, when you look into this enough, or you get out there enough, you know, investigating this, you start to like stop asking the question of what is this, you know, and we think more in like isolated terms: Bigfoot, ghostesses, aliens, whatever. You start to stop asking those questions of what, because once you've experienced it enough of it, your question should begin to change. And the question that you should be asking yourself is, why? Why is this? Once that happens, you're really on the right path. So, yeah. Alright, guys. Tuki. Bye!
The beacons are lit! The people call for aid!
Night's Watch will answer.
Right on my heathens, time to break the binding chains.
Enough of feasting. The hour for comfort has passed.
Only freedom now remains. Breaking all the chains.